Okay, I finally put the trains together. I've got 6 of them running, which was the goal of the new design on the layout. So we're just going to let it run a while here and see what transpires. There's a train waiting. And we've got over on that little crossing there was a train waiting. He just took off. And we got another one coming up here fixing to run into the turnout. As soon as the other train gets far enough ahead, he'll start going again. But I've got the 2 military trains running on one figure 8. They're just kind of chasing each other around. You can see one stopped way back there in the distance, waiting for the other one to get going. And then we got 2 passenger trains on the other figure 8. And then 2 freight trains with the small diesels flip-flopping between the 2 figure 8s. So at any one time, there's a possibility of 4 trains running on a single figure 8. But everything seems to be running fairly smooth. I still got some stuff to do tweaking wise on this. Had a couple of issues with a couple of the BLI locomotives not slowing down fast enough. And I had made the mistake of leaving some deceleration settings in the decoders that weren't correct. I used the deceleration and acceleration in train controller. It's just a lot easier to deal with it that way rather than setting it up in the individual decoders. So, anyhow, so far I'm not seeing any collisions. I still got some work to do on some of the rolling stock regarding random decouplings and particularly the model power ones, and also derailments again with the model power. I kind of gone through and fixed the worst offenders so far, but don't know that they're completely trustworthy at this point. Still have some work to do on the Walthers passenger cars. They don't have all the diaphragm springs disabled on those. That has more to do with ease of coupling and uncoupling them than anything else for me. But it's interesting to see that the software is handling this barrage of information fairly well as far as the motion of the trains in relation to each other and where they're meeting at critical turnovers where they can collide, run into each other, or the double track crossing over there by that power station. That's quite often 3 trains meet at the same time there, but software train controller seems to sort it all out. I kind of like this 2 passenger, or these 2 tracks coming together at this passenger station, a little dinky passenger station, and now we're getting a little log jam, which happens quite often with the 3rd train on a particular figure 8. 2 trains will run real smooth with hardly any slowdowns or anything like that on each figure 8. They'll kind of pace themselves to each other. But the introduction of 2 more freight trains jumping between the 2 figure 8s is kind of creates a traffic nightmare. Now we've got one train approaching the crossing and the other one coming. Let's see. The military train had to stop on the little freight train. I think what train controller's doing is sorting this out by time. In other words, the train that is been waiting the longest gets to go first, so to speak. And then the trains that have been running, if there's a train stopped, they have to wait on it, so to speak. I think I can change up those priorities. I just haven't looked into that. But there's a case where the the freight train and the passenger train both coming into the same turnout. We'll just let it run a while here. I'm half tempted to introduce that 7th train just to see what happens, but I already got enough slowdowns and stoppages. If I bring in that 7th train, or heaven forbid, a 8th train, most of the trains are going to be stopping and waiting on each other, but I'm not having any issues with collisions and no stalled out log jams anymore. Yeah, gotta watch that little crossing. That guy is neat where these trains meet all the time. I'm gonna move the camera a little closer, maybe you can see it better. It's just to the left of that power station. There's a double main crossed by a single track. That single track is crossing over from one figure 8 to the other. Now I got the two freight trains running along, chasing each other. Here comes the passenger train, going to try to overtake the freight train. Let's see who gets the right of way here. No, looks like the passenger train's going to get it this time. I love the spontaneous runs in train controller because you never know what's really going to show up where. Like I said, right now the 2 passenger trains are restricted to one figure 8, and the 2 military trains are restricted to the other, but eventually I'll take those restrictions off and just let them. Okay, see, that guy came along behind him, and then he'd been waiting a while, so he got to go. Let me move this back a little further. We can watch what's going on at this turnout. So the places of convergence, if you would, where there's a possible collision, is this turnout where that right here directly in front of us. Then the turnout just beyond the little power station, or I mean the depot. And then of course the biggie is the double main crossing by that single crossing track. I've seen multiple times 3 trains approach that crossing simultaneously, and I haven't figured out exactly what train controller is doing to sort out who gets the right of way through there. I really tickled with this. The trains are running fairly reliable. Each train's probably, I don't know, 5 feet long, something like that. The layout is 10 by 16, so there's not a lot of room when the trains have to maintain a 2-block spacing in order to proceed. And there's one catching up to the other. 2 military trains are stacked up. And there goes one of them. And you hear noisy trucks and wheels off these model power cars. We'll have to work on that. Uh-oh, passenger train's going to have to stop and wait on the freight train. I don't know whether it's who gets there first or what the choice is with train controller, but okay, we got another potential collision coming up at the crossing. There goes one train through there. A little freight train on the crossing track had to stop. Here comes the other military train. So I guess the little freight train will get to go next. But each one of those little freight trains, they're jumping between the two figure eights, and of course every time they do that, it slows the traffic down on that figure eight. And every once in a while, I end up with both little freight trains on the same figure eight with two other trains that are restricted to running on that figure eight. But as soon as I get a little more work done, I'll take off those restrictions so all the trains can go anywhere they darn well please. And maybe it'll smooth out a little bit. I don't know if train control will try to balance it out, knowing what the track plan is and what the traffic is. But we're running pretty smooth. I haven't heard any wheels going clickety-clack from derailing, and doesn't look like anybody's come uncoupled. Pretty cool. And like they said in the cartoons, that's all.